Good afternoon. It is Thursday, February 10th, 2022. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Harlan Municipal Utilities Board of Trustees to order. Need an approval of the agenda.
One quick piece on the agenda with regard to that plan that was submitted, the clarification on the date. You should have referenced the first board meeting in January, that special meeting we had, rather than the January 27th board meeting.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Reese, aye.
Sheldon, aye.
And maybe just announce that Noah's on.
Nella is with us by Zoom. At the moment she is driving, so we will not ask her for a vote unless it's necessary or something. So, item number 3 is the consent agenda. It includes the meeting minutes of January 27th, the abstract of claims number 1206 in the amount of $522,988, and the upcoming board meetings February 24th of regular and March 10th will be electronic.
I approve the consent for agenda.
So we have a motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Michelle, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Reese, aye.
Sheldon, aye. And item number 4.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yeah, somebody else was saying some not very nice stuff. I muted them. Can you hear us, Nella? Okay, Curtis, could you please mute your, or somebody keeps talking.
I think that's Nella's.
With her?
There you go. That's 579.
I can still hear it, and she's muted.
I think it is at 8055, am I right?
Okay. I'll just mute myself. Okay, there we go.
Okay. Item number 4 is follow-up discussion on disposal of the telecom utility.
Yes, at the special board meeting back in early January, the board chair asked if we could prepare a plan for the telecom utility. Basically, the approach taken was to work up just a short abbreviated staff plan, more or less a work in progress, and that's what is attached on the HMU letterhead. Basically, the gist of that plan is that if the board makes a determination to sell the utility, we went through and did a preliminary review of the number of programming contracts, both NCTC and those that we've done independently, and they basically would all be deauthorized upon termination. In other words, they can't be assigned or assumed. We had 5 retransmission agreements. These are basically with the local network carriers. None of those are assignable or assumable. And we've been going back through, as I said, this is work in progress. So far, we've identified 31 service and support agreements, consultative services, software support, technology support, none of which are assignable, assumable, or transferable. So all those agreements would have to be terminated upon any action by the board. Also, the C-band proceeds would have to be refunded to the government. And also the approximately 150,000 upgraded satellite receivers that we've been installing would all have to be returned to the programmers and content providers. And the Walnut Communications Agreement, basically it's renewable on a year-to-year basis until notification provided otherwise. And in discussions with Marty Elkhorn, they would like to have that contract at least through 2024. That's their currently scheduled time to complete some of their customer conversions over to Internet Protocol video services. And then the remaining items to be determined Operational, what equipment, servers we'd have to retain to operate the internet on behalf of the electric utility, both equipment and staffing, what that would take. Security and access to HMU facilities for a non-HMU employee. And then outstanding for the attorney yet are the income tax and tax exempt impacts. So that, in a nutshell, is briefly what is there. Should the board make a determination, if the board makes a determination to retain the telecom utility, we've just completed our full digital upgrade, so from a technology standpoint, we're in good shape. The technology retention is probably 5 to 7 years that we should be able to use most of the technology that we've currently installed. The one project that remains out there would be moving up to the next level of routers for our customer usage, and that would probably be a plan to implement Wi-Fi 6 routers, and that would be over the course of the next year and a half. And then we also obtained a proposal from Smart Source Consulting. If the board's interested, that's going to an outside resource to do a more in-depth study, including surveys and reviewing the financials that we've already prepared, looking at the overall industry, looking at the statewide perspective for fiber optics and municipal utilities. And at this point, I'm going to ask Curtis if he could maybe just kind of give a brief overview to the board of what would be in his proposal if the board were to determine to go that route longer term. Curtis, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Ken. Hello, board. Thanks for letting me come back and talk to you a little bit. Ken reached out to me after the last meeting that I was attended virtually to advocate for an extreme amount of caution for selling the telecom utility, and fortunately you were exercising that caution and due diligence. Ken reached out to me to ask if I could provide a proposal for outside assistance on various elements of operating the telecommunication utility specifically, of course, and also to help identify if there are issues that may be leading to some of the criticism that has been faced, in particular with the group that has advocated for a sale, to identify those issues, get them up to the surface so they can be addressed. A lot of times you don't know what you don't know until you start digging a little bit. And so my goal would be to help you dig a little bit and identify what areas that HMU Telecom could improve operations, improve workflow, improve your customer service, products, etc., to answer any concerns the community might have, and then come up with a plan to help you move forward with that. A vital element of that, I believe, is to talk to the community. We've referenced, and you've referenced the referendum. Sorry, hearing an echo there. Reference the referendum. That represents just a very small part of the total voting age public, even in Harlan, much less the people that went to the polls. So we really need to find out what the rest of Harlan is thinking. Not only your customers, but the people who are not your customers. Because long-term growth through acquisition of new customers will really help with all of these issues by giving you additional revenue to improve your operations and improve the bottom line. And to get to that customer growth, we need to understand what are the issues at play there among the people that maybe don't have your services. So the proposal would include a community-wide survey. We could then compare results of the survey between your existing customers and non-customers and see if we can identify what those gaps are, why people maybe have not switched to you or have switched to another provider after having had your services. Again, with the goal of taking that information and feeding it into a comprehensive marketing plan to identify strategies to bring those people over to HMU Telecom. Some of the work will be also just talking with the various stakeholders internally within the organization. That means your employees, that means your leadership team, that means board members, but also engaging with people who are outside of the organization but are part of the community. So this is a process that I've done for a couple of other municipal broadband utilities over the years. Specifically, I did a lot of work for Rhinebeck about 7 years ago when they were having some troubles, and we were able to identify the source and the root of some of those issues. And through a lot of hard work and elbow grease and by their staff and their board, they're now reached a point where financially they've really turned their boat around, and they're going to be able to go out and get the funding it takes to completely rebuild their network to fiber to the home. And this is for a town a third the size of Harlan. So it can be done, and it can be successful. It's just identifying the issues that may be at play here, and that's what I would propose to do.
And Curtis, what would that look like? This is Matt Hudson, I'm an attorney for HMU.
Hey, Matt.
I guess, what would that look like as far as what would need to be done internally by HMU, externally? Is it some sort of, I guess, how do we get that feedback?
Sure.
What's the process?
Well, the proposal that I presented has what I call the discovery phase. That's right, information gathering. That includes interviews with leadership at HMU, telecom leadership. So Ken, Jim, others who are in leadership roles within the organization to gather their perspectives. Interviews with the entire telecom employee base, because a lot of times employees understand things better than maybe others do, and it's nice to get that feedback from them. I would like to interview the board members individually to learn a little bit more about their perspectives on how you got to where you are today and what you think should be done going forward. And then other stakeholders within the community, probably through a virtual meeting on Zoom, where we would gather in people that represent your business community, education, the public sector, agriculture, since of course you're, like every town in Iowa, have a high role in agriculture in your community, and have a stakeholder meeting with them. And then finally a feedback community survey, that we gather all that data, and then what I'd like to do is do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats in various areas of operating a telecom utility. Customer service, technology, products and pricing, overall financial picture, and utility management and leadership. And then through that process, come up with some recommendations that the board could then choose to implement and to moving forward.
Any questions for Curtis?
Yeah, so I do have a comment. So I think what you've proposed is valuable. I just want to make sure we're clear as to the reason why we're doing this is to make the telecom better or come up with a plan. It's not to go back and make a determination on whether or not we're selling or not selling. I mean, I think when we went back and looked at the reason why we're even in this situation was because we had a misinterpretation of an audit report that put us in the red because of an acceleration device poorly ran utility. If that makes sense.
Yeah, this is all about getting better, right? If you wanted to hire somebody to tell you how awesome you are and how you're perfect, then I would ask you to find someone else. I want you to get better. I know in my own life personally, in my own business, and when working with all my clients, it all starts with identifying the situation at hand, so you can take a good hard look at what you're doing and identify ways that you can do those differently and better for the benefit of your bottom line and the benefit of your customers. It doesn't mean everything is, that there's problems everywhere. It just means let's get to those problems. Let's identify those and move forward with it. It's not really, what I'm going to do is not really about whether you're going to sell the utility or not. That's going to be your decision. And you've got, as Ken's memo outlined, a whole lot of untangling to do before you could even think about that. This is about moving forward. How do you serve the community to the best of your abilities? And learning why there's a segment of the community that feels the way they do.
Okay.
Even if those those opinions are based on misconceptions. Let's figure out the root of those misconceptions and identify moving forward how HMU can meet those questions head on and communicate better with the public.
Basically, the purpose for bringing Curtis is that the board decides they want more information, on the future potential or anything along those lines.
I think we do need more information. I mean, we have a letter here from one customer, and I hear it from a lot of other customers. So I think we do need to do more than just say, okay, I think we need to do our due diligence before we get rid of anything. And you can't do it in just 2 weeks. It's going to take a little bit. Plus we have positions that we need to look for. I mean, I think this should be the last of our concern for right now. It should be a concern, yes, but we have a lot of other things to do besides this.
Well, if I could just interject for a second, I heard about Ken's retirement upcoming. This is an important moment for the utilities. You're going to be seeking a new Ken, a new leader for the entire organization. I always feel it's best if you can set that next person up to be successful in any way you can. Give them all the tools for success that you possibly can put in that toolbox. And I think information is one of the biggest tools that you can give that person. Helping, so when they come in summer, whenever that person is retained and onboarded, that there's a plan in place that they can help tweak, right, and help guide implementation of, but they're not going to come in a vacuum and say, we don't know what to do. So this timing is really important, I think, guys.
Agreed.
My biggest concern in the subcommittee meeting we had was we've had to spend a tremendous amount of money this past year because of the petition and everything else. And that was more than what our bottom line is. And this is only adding to that. So from that point of view, I don't want to throw any more fuel on that fire, about aren't we making any money? No, we can't make money as long as we keep having to spend money that isn't going to get us any return. And, doing the audits and the appraisals and all that stuff to satisfy the petition was one thing. Now to do this to find out what the true feedback is from our customers. I totally agree we need our customers that we have, we need to know what their thoughts are. What we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, how they believe, what we should do going forward and that type of thing. But that's, 50% of our bottom line next year would go towards putting together this and gathering that information, for the telecom utility only. So that's a concern of mine.
It's certainly a concern. I know I've seen that number, but it's not off the top of my head. Do we ever know what that proposal?
It's around $30,000.
Around $30,000. That's a big number for a utility that has
a $75,000 bottom line.
Right. So when we think about how handy it would be to have that information, we need to consider what that cost is. And take that very seriously. I agree. One other thing that I'm curious about when we keep talking about doing our due diligence and making sure that we see all the possibilities, we've more or less been accused of ghosting the person who made the proposal. We have made no contact with FMCTC since their offer to purchase or anything.
No, the legal advice was not to.
Matt, was that true?
Matt, it didn't come from Matt, it came from Nagel. He said he didn't want to respond, we shouldn't respond to that unless we intended to take action on it. So.
Okay, I apologize, I missed what you were asking me, David.
Well, I was just told that we were advised legally not to respond to FMCTC in any way, and that seemed strange to me.
That did not come from me.
No, it came from Nabel, and he basically stated that the safest course was, unless we intended to get into negotiations or respond in some kind of a formal manner, that we shouldn't respond. And that was,
Well,
that's what I interpreted.
In reality, you know, especially considering what we went over at the last meeting to discuss this very issue, you know, we weren't in a position to be negotiating or responding or anything remotely like that. We just weren't. I don't know how we could have been expected to be, I suppose. So, you know, if I wasn't asked that question to provide a legal opinion on whether to get back to that, but I think if we look back at the situation and the timing of everything, there was literally, it was an impossibility to even begin discussing things when we don't know what we're discussing from our side.
And while I agree with that, it seems odd to me that absolutely no correspondence was the recommended course of action. Even to simply say, I'm sorry, but we cannot, what's that?
It wasn't recommended by me to not respond.
Okay.
You know, at all.
Okay.
Ken would know better than I.
I mean, the only response was that his proposal was being forwarded to the board, so that was the only response I made.
I would agree with David in that we probably do owe, I mean, it's a day late and a dollar short in some regards, but there are reasons or miscommunications, but we definitely do owe them some sort of acknowledgement at least, let alone whether board or CEO type communication back to nothing else, just mend some fences.
Yeah, I struggle with that as a business person, to think that completely ignoring it was the right move. So something we should consider moving forward. Now, I don't know who would be the appropriate person to make that communication. I can only imagine it would be the CEO, because certainly no board member would have that kind of authority. So.
Well, I would propose that if there was a communication, it would come from either Steve Nadel or myself. And just, you know, and there was no ill intent in any way of not responding. It was just, there was nothing that we could have knowledge to respond, except, as was mentioned earlier, you know, that we received it and we will have to do due diligence prior to, you know, having any other further interactions. And that's something that I think probably needs to come from legal counsel.
Okay, well, at this point, I agree with Jim that even though it's a day late and a dollar short, I think just from a courtesy standpoint, it's something we should do, so. But again, I don't know that comes from the board. That seems like a CEO level decision, so we'll leave that.
And then, of course, that, David, you're correct. That is up to the board to make that determination on who should respond and how. You know, so I'll leave that up to all of your judgment, but I don't think it's really on the agenda to be voted on today.
Does it even have to really have a motion?
I wouldn't think so.
I mean,
I wouldn't think so at all.
So
they can just discuss it amongst themselves and then send something, and if they want you to do it, we'll let you know.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Jenny.
So then we would just have Ken draft a letter and send it to him?
Well, it sounds like we'll have that conversation. I'm not sure this is the time or the place for
Okay.
it, but again, I do believe that some form of communication is in order. So that was more my opinion than anything else. But
and just to interject one more time, I know for a fact there was no intention of, you know, being, I guess, you know, rude in any way on anybody's part at all. And I hope that no one in the community would believe that that is the case. But I saw no evidence of that, and it wasn't intended to come across that way. That no response was given. It's very difficult to do when we're in the mode that we were in and the position we were placed in.
Okay, other comments?
I think we need to do like a survey or something, like Randy said.
Everything you're talking about costs money. That's the question.
Well, not $30,000.
Well, okay, we don't have any other proposals presented, so unless we're going to personally take on a survey, I don't have another option to offer up. So,
If I could offer one comment.
Yeah.
The scope that was proposed was $23,750, just for clarification.
okay.
That was a not to exceed amount if we needed to exceed it required previously.
I mean, I guess my question is, how do we get data from our customers now? How do we get feedback? Do we have a feedback loop? Do we have a mechanism to get information from them that doesn't require us?
We used to periodically send out cards, comment cards.
It would be a mailing, or you could do a link to a survey. It just depends on what people are gonna be comfortable. Some people are gonna send a paper survey back, some people are gonna want like a Survey Monkey link or something like that. It just, everybody would be different.
Am I okay to say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
From a customer service standpoint, we have customers tell us all the time, especially with this, they would love the opportunity to be able to talk to you. So could we have some event or, invite people to come in on a certain night and just visit with the board?
The concept of a town hall type meeting has been brought up. I don't know that it makes sense at this point, since we are not entertaining an offer currently and we are not as a group leaning in that direction. We're talking more when we talk about this survey now about how do we move forward. I'm not speaking for the board on whether we're going to entertain a sale or not, but we don't have an offer on the table right now, and it sounds like the telecom committee would like to have an opportunity to develop a comprehensive plan to move us forward. But a tool that would be nice would be this survey, but at the expense, that's what we have to talk about is, does that make sense? Jen?
And I have a question too about the survey, because we were kind of talking about this. What if you only get the negative Nellies that fill out the survey and you don't get the customers that are happy? Because there are going to be some customers that are going to be like, no, I'm happy, I'm fine, I'm not going to waste my time sending that in.
Right.
How much are you going to base your decision on this survey?
Part of and this is a challenge that every business faces, which is why so many of them are now paying you for your survey results. Our ISO 9000 program at Molden requires us to do a customer satisfaction index, and we use SurveyMonkey, and we poll every single customer, we mail, we do everything we can think of, and we get roughly 6% of our customer base response. And that 6% is not yeah, I'm fine, everything's cool. They don't bother. They don't have time, or they don't take the time, and that's the same kind of results that we're going to have here, short of going door to door, and then you're still only going to catch the people that happen to be there at that time and are willing to answer the door. That kind of feedback is challenging. That's one of the reasons why it's $23,000. It's not something you're going to get done by simply throwing a survey out on the internet and hope people fill it out. So how do we do it? If we could figure it out, I'm sure we could sell that business model all over the country, because we all need it, and very few organizations have figured it out. So.
And it looks like Nella has a question also.
Did you?
Hi, Noah.
Or comment.
Hi, I had trouble getting the audio, so I finally asked Jenny where I could dial in, and she helped me with this. It was an interesting point, David, that you brought up about the only 6%, and I know we've sent out survey cards before. Does anybody know what percentage of survey cards we've gotten back when we sent them out?
We don't have a certain percentage. Doug was in charge of that, but just knowing that he sent them out to all of the customers, and I would say we would get maybe 30 back at a time. So our percentage wouldn't have been very high either if that was sent to every customer in town. And
what was the return on the city survey they did for the comp plan?
That was. I know being involved in other surveys through our EMS and this type of thing, they said if we've gotten 20% back, they thought we've gotten a very good response. And so, you know, I'm not sure. I know there's not much that we can, in the way that we can offer, but, you know, we're going to get really low numbers back.
When we would do those cards, they would be sent to all customers, and I think we bill around 3,000 customers a month on the utility side, and with the 30 or 40, just 30 or 40 returns. That's not percent, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Is there a way that the customer service reps could do a phone call to the telecom?
If you want to hire extra customer service reps, because they wouldn't have time to call every customer.
Telemarketing campaigns, I mean, very few people answer the phone for a telemarketer these days. Virtually everyone has caller ID, and if they don't recognize your number, most likely they're not going to answer it. And yeah, telemarketing is, other than automated, where it's really annoying, it's really not effective.
So I think I would agree with your comment or question about, you know, we're asking about surveying, getting information from the customers, and that's one part of communication. What I think we need to maybe think about is the communication going out. You know, what is our plan? It's not just about telecommunications, it's about water, it's about electric, it's about gas. How do we, you know, maybe a town hall is something that, in which we simply provide a snapshot of where your HMU is at, where we're planning on going in conjunction with the city, so that we're not just wanting to get the 6% or get the ones that are just happy or disgruntled. You know, we're trying to inform the masses. So, you know, I don't know that a survey is going to give us the information we need, but I think we owe the community, or in my humble opinion, I think we owe the community information, not marketing, but information about where we're at and the direction we're going in, to alleviate some of these.
Just sitting here speculating, I think probably the best turnout you would get is if we had another customer appreciation dinner. Usually we get 700 people show up. Had some kind of survey in conjunction with people coming to that. I don't know. I mean, just a thought.
But would you really have the opportunity to sit and answer questions from customers? Because it seems like the employees I know are busy during that.
Surveying stuff, yeah, go ahead.
I've always thought for our HMU celebrations, for our customers, that's the perfect opportunity to talk to your people. They're sitting there, they're eating. If we had the stage and we had a mic and we told them, you know, what better opportunity? And you know, you've got all your utility customers, and maybe some of them don't know we even have telecom. You know, mention your telecom while they're there.
Are we back to doing that sort of thing with the COVID?
It hasn't been determined yet.
It hasn't been determined yet. I mean, that is why we didn't do it
The last
2 years.
Yeah.
And are we past that is the question, so.
Did you have something else?
The other place where we used to get a little bit of feedback sometimes when we used to do the home shows, when they used to have those.
Yeah. That's another one of those that went away, and hard to tell if that's ever going to come back.
Gene, back to my question. Do you recall right off what the survey stuff was for the comp plan?
I want to best recall it was overall pretty good, but it was less than 15% is my best recollection. I can get that to you for sure. Keep in mind also that was not restricted to a certain geographical area. It was broken down by, you know, do you live within Harlan, within Shelby County, or other. So it had.
So it was greater than
it wasn't a defined population that we are surveying.
One thing I'd like to add, just a couple of points on surveys, because obviously that's a big part of the topic here. Number one, there are ways to guard against people stacking the ballot boxes regarding only getting the negative nellies. You know, one thing you could do would be more of a random sample, where you take a random sample of all citizens or all households and you invite that household to participate. That helps protect against people either positively or negatively stacking the deck, so to speak. Number two, the thing that a survey brings you that say a one-on-one conversation, which by the way, I love the idea of a town hall meeting too as an additional way to get feedback, but the problem with that is people are nice, and people won't always tell you what they really think if you ask them. So that if you want to know what they really think, you have to be able to do it in such a way that somebody can give you that feedback anonymously without feeling them worrying about you being mad at them because they said it. So that anonymity is very important. That's one of the ways surveys work. All the surveys I've done in the past include, obviously, yes, no questions, multiple choice questions, but then lots of opportunities for additional comments and feedback. And you hear a lot, you learn a lot from those rants that people will type out in a feedback box. So just keep that in mind with the survey versus other forms of feedback. Any way you can get customer feedback directly is good, but some of it will be more valuable than others.
What additional information does the board need from me or from staff? Any other remaining questions with regard to this?
Well, I still believe that we got to put together a 3 to 5 year capital plan from the department of what they're forecasting for replacement updates so that we have something as a starting point financially, you know, outside of whatever, you know, this is. I'm saying based on the technology that's going to be changing and that type of thing, and a better staffing plan. You've talked about, you know, if you're going to put a knock operator in there, yes, no, or is it going to be a multi-purpose? You know, we've discussed it in, you know, at our last retreat, what, 2 years ago or whatever, and that type of thing. So we've got to have those defined better, in my opinion.
And more in transparency.
We do do a 5-year
did you have a
CapEx as
comment?
part of the budget process, so there will be
Okay.
a 5-year CapEx projection.
I think Noah had her hand raised. She had a comment.
I guess my question about the town hall meeting is, are we looking at specifically finding out what they're thinking of the telecom utility, or are we looking at their thoughts on all the utilities? Because if we're just looking at the telecom utility, we may muddy the water because they want to give their thoughts on all the utilities, and it may not be what we're looking for doing a town hall meeting. Now, if we want them to express their thoughts on all utilities, that's one thing. But if we're just looking at the telecom utility and people expressing their thoughts and feelings on the one utility, then I think we need to make it very plain that we're just discussing the telecom utility or the broadband utility and not all utilities. And at some point we'll have another town hall meeting and discuss the rest of the utilities. Otherwise, I think we're just going to muddy the water and opinions. That's just my thought.
Any other questions? Anything else you need me to follow up on?
Did you put down employees? I want feedback from employees.
Staffing plan.
It doesn't look like anybody else online has any questions.
Okay, at this point, there's no action required on that. I think we've had good discussion. So we shall move on to item number 5, resolution number 40, 2022, A resolution to approve rates for cable TV internet services, changes or additions.
Yes, this is primarily to pass through our annual programming cost increase. These are pass-throughs, and the attached information shows the impact on various packages, video, digital basic bundle. And then we are proposing also to increase the internet light by $3. That's the only standalone that's being increased.
$3, that's it?
For the increase in $3.
That's pretty good.
Just to be clear, this is an increase that's being levied upon us by providers. It's not necessarily the utility raising our rates independent of, is that?
This is strictly a pass-through of the programming costs from the various providers, the networks, Disney, the retransmission fees for the ABCs, the CBSs, the Fox, okay, all of them. So
we're typically in a 3-year agreement, and each year they increase their rate. So each year we adjust and our rates at the same time.
This will take effect on
April 1.
April 1. Okay.
We have to provide 30-day notice and get other information there. So coordinate the rate change schedule in the MAC software.
I would entertain a motion. Someone would like to make it.
I'll make the motion to pass the resolution 40-2022.
Second.
Roll call.
Michelle, aye.
Sarah, aye.
Reese, aye.
Sheldon, aye.
Cyber aye.
Okay. Item number 6 is the temporary halt of water funds transfer of $42,500 per month to the water bond reserve account and to reinstate July 1, 2022.
Yes, this is an effort to help a little bit with the cash flow of the water utility. The water bond reserve account is adequately funded for current needs through the remainder of this fiscal year. So it would just be a temporary halt to the monthly transfer of funds to the water bond reserve account. And then it would be reinstated beginning of the next fiscal year, starting July 1.
Will that bring us even?
It won't bring us even, but it will help a little bit on the cash flow situation with water utility.
I mean, as far as when you say we're ahead, how far are we ahead?
I do not have that exact number. I'll get it for you. But it is overfunded.
Okay.
So
I think the number provided was $87,600.
Over, I think.
Over.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Need a motion.
Okay, I motion to temporary halt the water funds for.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Randy? Roll call.
Michelle, aye.
Sarah, aye.
Reese, aye.
Sheldon, aye.
Okay.
Cyber aye.
Cyber aye. Thank you, Noah.
Information items only, Innovative Systems invoice in the amount of $5,500.
Help me out, Ken. Innovative Systems.
It's our annual support fee with Innovative Systems for the AP Max product that provides our phone voicemail services, telemarketing block, call termination. So that includes software updates, 24/7, 365 support, and this is the annual yearly cost for that.
Just an information on it.
And then on to CEO report.
Okay, had our all hands this morning and talked about a few of the items.
Can I just mention some important action items? I'm going to excuse myself.
Okay.
She's just gonna leave the meeting since there's no more action items.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, as far as kudos, had a kudo for Lexi, Jim, and Kenny. We had a commercial customer that converted this week from another provider over to our HMU Telecom. And they just wrote to express their appreciation for the painless, virtually painless for them setup. We did it just basically in a day. They're a large interstate, well, let me say, they've got properties in a number of surrounding states, and their IT group was surprised, I think, by the level of the service that they got, and also by the technology. They were talking about these typical cable access modems and everything else that they were talking about hooking up, and it was, you don't need all that, we got fiber. And so it was a pretty painless process for them. They expressed that appreciation to their staff. So that was a nice conversion for them. That was kudos. Anniversaries, David Swank started February 2nd of 2004, and Brian Leisher started February 13th of 2012. So we always try to express our appreciation to staff on anniversary dates. We doing interviews for meter reader position, and we currently have 2 customer service tech openings in the telecom department for an installer and a repair person. So anybody that has a technology bent, we have a couple openings there. Also, just an update on the pressure filter number 1 that we did. We checked it again this week, and there's no media in the underdrain, so it appears the fix has worked on the pressure filter number 1 as well. So our media problems in the pressure filters appears to be resolved. So that was good news. We'll continue to monitor.
That's fantastic news.
Yeah, so we'll continue to monitor that over the next couple of months and continue along that line. And then the only remaining piece on the water plant is we do have in the budget that's being proposed and discussed to replace the membranes in July, the next fiscal year. And then that should be full remediation of the water plant. So that was good news. The bad news is that we had a pump on RO number 1 fail. So we are currently operating with just a single RO unit water plant. The quoted delivery time that is, I just approved today on an emergency basis for equipment replacement. It's going to run about $15,798 for the new pump. And the quoted delivery on that, what was it? 10 to 12 weeks. 10 to 12 weeks. Oh. And we replaced both pumps. Both pumps failed, I believe it was in the calendar year 2017. So the appearance is about every 5 years, the expected life. But we are going to have a diagnostic done on the motor, see if there's anything that might be causing these failures, if it's just normal, anticipated 5-year life, or if there's something else that might be contributing to it. It's a vertical setup for a pump motor, so it's unusual the way it's set up. So we're just going to have some diagnostics done on it. And then based on the diagnostics, we may try to have it repaired and then keep it as a spare. So we're waiting for a quote on that option as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to get to. Instead of, I mean, I know it's $15,000.
Yeah.
But wouldn't we always want to have a spare here just in case?
We had talked about that the last time, and the question came up whether you could keep a motor that long without having detrimental effects on the copper windings and everything else that was just sitting there. So we opted not to do it the last time, but we're going to take a look at it again this time.
Okay.
So that's the RO plan. We did get a preliminary.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So that pump not working, does it have any impact on production?
We only have 1 RO unit. The other one will be down until we get it in motor.
50%.
Yeah.
What percent?
It's still, we're still able to operate at full capacity, but the redundancy is gone.
Yep.
We can only have one RO skid to operate off of.
So we're still at 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that a common motor?
No.
No,
Okay. I was gonna say you might be able to do a sheriff's fair with another utility if that were the case.
They're special built. And we did get a preliminary from the Corps of Engineers. They did a preliminary assessment on the plans for the raw water development project. And although there are some edits in their initial permit letter that are being addressed, it appears that we may have some earlier than expected Corps permits on the water project. We had originally projected 6 to 9 months, so that's good news if we can push that project timeline a bit. So we just got that letter, so I'm still waiting for a full assessment from McClure on the potential impact on that. So that's all I have, unless the board has questions for me.
I have a question. Is Matt still on the line, or have we heard anything on that lawsuit for the Dye Street business?
We had discussions with Prairie Fire, and they were going to put together a payment proposal to pay those funds. We're waiting for that because the case was filed in court. Matt needs to get some kind of a proposed agreement that he can take back to court. We're currently waiting for that proposal from them.
He's trying to get it before the next board meeting.
Yeah.
If you'd like me to speak to that
Sure.
again.
Go ahead, Matt. Yeah.
Inspired.
Yeah.
Well, we had a meeting with their attorney from Kansas City, and the representative from the company. And I felt it was a very productive meeting in every aspect. I mean, their issues they had as to why they weren't paying. We had Ken, Jenny, we had a number of people that were explaining the actual process. And so I assumed, and that was weeks ago, I was expecting some sort of an offer as to how they were going to pay precisely. And we pretty much got to that level. And then I checked with him. Jenny reminded me of the board meeting coming up. You know, I contacted the person. They did not respond except to say that I'll check. And that was a week ago at least, right, Jenny? And I'm just kind of surprised we haven't received anything because it's kind of a very simple situation. They promised by telephone they would pay an initial amount. I think it was approximately $8,000, and then provide a proposal on how to get the rest paid. And the way we left it was there really wasn't much in dispute anymore. Would that be an accurate statement, Ken?
Yes.
And that meeting was January 21st.
Yeah, and then I haven't received anything formally, even though I've made multiple requests. We're dealing with a situation where the company has an attorney in another state, and then they had to hire an attorney that's licensed in Iowa. And so there's I guess a circular pattern that they have to deal with. But I'm kind of surprised I haven't received anything because there are things that we have to do in the future very soon. We have to provide court administration with some information about the case. They will set a trial scheduling conference if we don't get this figured out. Those types of things. And then, of course, one thing I should remind, and I think it was Nella that brought it up in the first place, and I was going to do it anyway because that's traditionally what I do, is there also is the matter of attorney fees. So when we get something from them, it's going to be up to the board on whether we accept it, obviously, and whether we accept the terms of the payment plan. There's also a lot of details that need to be involved in that, like we can't just wait and push this out a year. We just can't say, hey, court administration, don't set this case for trial because we have a deal. They have to do certain things like provide us with an offer of judgment, meaning they're admitting that they owe the money to make it stop. And they owe the money by certain dates, and this is the amounts. So basically, by the next board meeting, our hope is that you will all have exactly what their proposal is, exactly what the potential attorney fees are, the exact attorney fees plus what I estimate would need to be done, and we'll fully inform you as to all of that as soon as we receive something from them. And I've already told them that our next board meeting is the 24th, so.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions for Matt? Okay. Any other questions of the board? Oh, I'm sorry. Colburn Warner and Donald Cody. Donald's going to be the water superintendent. Colburn's electric and gas superintendent. So I told them they had to have speeches ready today, but they were otherwise occupied. So.
Well, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Thank you.